2/3 of America is either overweight or obese, and over 2/3 of the deaths in the world are linked with obesity. Now, what is it that is causing metabolic dysfunction to spread around the world at such a rate? Why is this disease so harmful, and is there a solution? There is a lot of discussion around this topic, and many researchers have their own theories as to why this is happening and about what the derivative cause may be. In this documentary, I'm solely focusing on the impact physical activity has on metabolic disease. I do believe that there are many variables at play when it comes to metabolic syndrome in determining metabolic health. For example, eating habits, stress, genetic disorders, and the consumption of toxins, i.e., smoking or drugs. However, the truth, as I believe, is that the issue is not manifesting for that reason, but for a much, much simpler reason. One that will change the way you think, act, and hopefully your perception on healthy habits. Inigo Samilan is a sports physiologist and assistant professor at the University of Colorado. He is fighting on the front lines when it comes to metabolic dysfunction and other related health issues. Inigo has studied the top elite endurance athletes in the world and used them as a specimen for his research. Through this research, he was given the opportunity to study as well as learn more about the differences between the metabolically dysfunctional population and the elite endurance athletes. This is how he would define this problem and his take on the cause.
San Milan. I'm a professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, and in Colorado, and I do medical research and also some clinical work. And I do my research is mainly in the areas of metabolism, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and also do some type 1. I also do cancer research in the area of cancer metabolism. And I also work in the area of sports medicine and sports performance with elite athletes. And that's pretty much, in a few words, what I do. It is an evolving concept. And, the more we understand, the better we know how to describe it. But it is mainly like a dysfunction of your metabolism. However, what we know more and more is that as we are understanding how dysfunctional that metabolism becomes, is that the epicenter of everything is the mitochondria. The mitochondria, or mitochondrion in singular, mitochondria are the powerhouses of all the cells, and this is where we burn fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. Which now is that when there's a dysfunctional or dysfunction in those mitochondria, they cannot process or metabolize the energy very well, and it causes a dysfunction in the mitochondria that leads to a wide range of metabolic diseases, like type 2 diabetes, and even cardiovascular disease, something that we call now cardiometabolic disease. We know that about 80% of people with cardiovascular disease, heart disease, for example, they also have type 2 diabetes, and vice versa. So this is why we're putting together under the same disease called cardiometabolic disease. And the main epicenter of that, as we're doing research, is the mitochondria.
Grundy and Scott M. said in their article called Obesity, Metabolic Syndrome, and Cardiovascular Disease that technology has caused the rise of sedentary jobs and abundant amounts of affordable and inexpensive foods. Thus, we adopt a sedentary lifestyle and consume more food than we need. However, the issue here is not that we are consuming toxic, harmful, affordable, and inexpensive or too much food. Lack of movement is. Runners, cyclists, swimmers, and triathletes, all of whom share one thing in common: the ability to process energy more efficiently than any other population in the world. In addition to being the fittest people in the world, they also consume more sugar than anyone else. Ex-professional cyclist Freddie Rodriguez once said, When I was a youth elite endurance athlete, I would go to Taco Bell because of my budget constraints to get affordable fuel for training rides.
Hi, I'm Freddie Rodriguez. I'm an elite endurance athlete. I was a professional cyclist. I did 20 years in the pro peloton over in Europe, where I competed in the Tour de France, in the Giro d'Italia, the Worlds, the Olympics.
So, Freddie, did diet matter, or was it important to your performance? Why or why not?
Yeah, diet is our fuel. You know, for an elite endurance athlete, our main source of energy is food. You know, so when you look at it in a simple way, it's just intake of fuel, carbohydrates, protein, fat, a balanced diet like that. In essence, we're burning a lot of energy, so we're looking for food, for energy. So yes, diet is very important.
Why are elite endurance athletes thin despite the fact that they consume so many calories?
I mean, if you, as like I said before, when we developed this mitochondria to such a level, the main fuel we're trying to burn, the most efficient fuel that we can use is fat fuel. So if you think about it, if you're spending a lot of time at your craft developing your endurance and getting stronger, you're using more of that fuel. So we're running out of that fuel, so we get thinner over time from the workouts. So if you're doing the workouts correctly and working the right zones, you should be burning the right fuel, which in return, you start running out of that fuel. So in a way, that's why we always talk about, you know, most elite endurance athletes, even though they are burning mostly fat, we consume a lot of sugar for energy. We consume up to 100 grams an hour when we're racing or training at a high level, which we could be, in the Tour de France, we could be doing, depending on your weight, 5 to 8,000 calories a day of just, which most of it comes from sugar. You know, you're getting a little bit of fat and protein, but mostly energy, which is sugar.
Is there a simple treatment for metabolic disease? Yes, there are patches or temporary fixes for some of the effects of metabolic disease, but is there a cure? Is it possible that a solution is available for everyone? For example, can prediabetes or even diabetes be reversed? And how could this be accomplished?
Yeah, so at this point, there's no medication for mitochondrial function and to cure cardiovascular disease or diabetes. The medications are there, but they don't cure the problem, right? The only medication that we know that works, it's exercise. Exercise is the element necessary to increase mitochondrial size and mitochondrial function. And this is again what we have learned from working with athletes, right? That's what we even know with athletes what intensities work the best to improve that mitochondrial function in athletes. And one of the things in athletes that is key for performance is the ability to burn fats, right? So you don't use as much glycogen or carbohydrates for the, you save it for the last part of the race. But especially it's also the ability to clear lactate happens in the mitochondria. So we know the intensity is also, that's what I call the zone 2. That's intensity that we know very well that improves that fat oxidation or fat utilization and lactate clearance capacity in athletes. So this is what we know that applied to populations with chronic diseases, as we're doing already clinically. But that's why we are also doing research to understand this better, but also to not just for the diagnostic, but maybe down the road might be some medication that can be taken that can improve specifically the mitochondria or some pieces of it. In the meantime, most of the medications out there for people with cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes, they're just buying you time. They don't cure it. And in fact, some of the medications might buy you time at the beginning, but might be detrimental down the road. And for that, an example is our statins. I don't know if you have heard about statins. So statins is the number one medication in the world. Statins are used except for anti-inflammatories and analgesics, but statins are for cholesterol, right? So they inhibit the production of cholesterol in the liver. So therefore, there's less cholesterol in the blood. What happens with cholesterol, the bad one, which is the LDL. The bad one, it builds in the arteries and eventually blocks the arteries and causes cardiovascular disease, right? It's
Blood flow. Yeah.
rheumatoid plaque. What inhibit not completely, but they decrease the production of cholesterol in the liver, so there's less cholesterol production in the artery. So that has saved millions of lives because it works. The problem with that is that it doesn't cure the disease, because what happens with one of the side effects of statins is that inhibits mitochondrial function. And specifically, we know very well that inhibits something is one of the factors of the mitochondria. So that's what it buys you time at first, but down the road is going to decrease your function, your metabolic function. And in fact, there are a few studies already showing that there's like a high risk of increase in type 2 diabetes with people on statins, and it's dose dependent. And within 15 years, you can significantly increase the risk of type 2 diabetes after starting with statins.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to be careful with those drugs as well, and use them where necessary.
Based on hearing this, what is it that we can do? Many of us struggle to get fit and lose weight. In general, people live very busy lives and have difficulty finding the time to incorporate exercise into their hectic schedules. So when people do find the time, they tend to do full effort exercises to get the most out of their workout. It is a common misconception that going harder equates to greater weight loss or better overall results. However, the opposite is true. Although it may seem counterintuitive that aerobic activity or low effort workouts have far greater effects in preventing and reversing metabolic syndrome, according to Indigo's research, this more sustained effort stimulates more mitochondria function than anaerobic activity and allows for higher fat burn. Another reason why full intensity workouts are not as beneficial is because they are unsustainable and that one can't hold the effort for long periods of time. As well, anaerobic exercise is very hard on the body and will eventually lead to injuries, illness, and burnout. My recommendation is to find something that you enjoy to do, be it cycling, running, swimming, soccer, or any other activity that you prefer, and slow it down. Just do it at a pace that is comfortable in order to promote the aerobic system and your best metabolic function. The road to becoming healthy should not involve killing yourself with extreme efforts, but rather enjoying the ride.